this video, I'm going to show you how to manage payroll and use our payroll reports and how to set up pay rates at the staff level as well as how to set it up at the class and lesson level. First, I'm going to go over to Setup in the left navigation, scroll down, and go to Features. If I scroll down this page, I'm going to see an area for instructor rules. So here we have primary, secondary, usually used for classes. Secondary could be used for private lessons. Private is typically used for private lessons, and then we also have reservations. Next, let's go to Setup and Financials. So we have a payroll tab here. There's job classes. This is totally optional, but you can add job classes to categorize your pay rates at another hierarchy level. So if I go back to features and then scroll down to look at instructor roles, you can see here you can also add other instructor roles as you need to. Let's go to staff next, see how that's set up. I'm going to go to Tom, go to details, and then employee information. When you're creating a staff member for the first time or editing an existing staff member, you'll be able to see a pay rates section. And so here I can click on the plus sign icon to add more pay rates. But here you can see we currently have a primary payroll type set up at a $40 pay rate. Effective start and end date. You want to make sure that these start and ending dates include the dates that you need to report their pay rate for. So if a class that they're teaching is set up at the primary pay rate, but it runs into December 2021, then the pay rate report is not going to show you any data past this ending date. So here we can see again, we have one for primary, and then we have one set up for private lessons at $55 pay rate. Next, let's go and create a class for this instructor. I'm going to go to classes, click on the plus sign icon, select the course group. Let's go with ballet, and I'm going to make sure to choose Tom for this example, location, capacity, choose the time period, make sure to set up a schedule. And then if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see the payroll section. So here I can choose hourly and also job class, which is completely optional. I'm going to skip over that and go to payroll type, select primary. You can see $40, the pay rate automatically populates. If I were to choose instead all classes or per class, per enrollment, you can set up what the pay rate would be for that. But I'm going to go with hourly for this example, which is usually the more common setup. Let's create the class. So here we have a class. I've already gone over and skipped the instructions for how to enroll a student and put Jimmy into this class. Next, let's look at how to enroll a student into a private lesson with this instructor, Tom, and set up the pay rates. So I'm going to go into private lessons, in the left navigation, enrollments, the ellipsis, enroll student, and let's enroll this student with the instructor. So select the time period, choose the subjects, course, teacher, make sure I choose Tom for this example, and here we have private for the payroll type. So I'm going to choose that specific payroll type since this is for a private lesson. And there's B tiers and all the other required fields. Now what I can do is go into reports, So reporting on the left navigation, then go to financial tab. We recommend using Instructor Hours 2.0. This is the newer Instructor Hours report for payroll. Up at the top left corner, you want to select a date range. I'm going to make sure to include the class and the lessons that were scheduled. So in this report, we have a lot of different filters in the middle here. You can filter by location, department, activities, so you can look at just classes or just lessons, statuses of the class or lesson, job classes if you have that set up, GL accounts, instructor. Let's look at just Tom for this example. And then you can also look at all records, only raw hours, which is something I can show you how to do later on with adding raw hours instead of having it hours that we look at from classes and lessons. You can also filter out to look at only records without attendance taken, only records with attendance taken, only records that are ready to be processed, which are typically records that have attendance taken. So I'm going to go ahead and click load data. So we can see here down below for Tom, the instructor, we have the ballet advanced class. It shows you each scheduled date in each row, the total scheduled hours, the pay rate, how much the total pay will be for that meeting. And if you scroll over to the right, there's a lot more information with that meeting. Start and end time, day of the week, as well as the GL account, duration time, time period, and more. Now, if I scroll down and go to some of the other pages here, we should be able to see the private lessons that we had set up. So starting in July, we can see beginning guitar and the pay rate, $55 for the private lesson pay rate for this instructor, scheduled hours, total pay, and the same details as for classes all the way to the right. I want to scroll up and look at the icon definitions up at the top here. So right now you can see on the left there's a red A icon. That means no attendance was taken. So attendance was missing. If the pay rate configuration is missing, you'll see this yellow C. That means you need to go into the staff page and set up their pay rates. If attendance was taken and everything is set up for pay rates at the staff level, you'll see a green R. It means ready to go. You can process the payroll. If it's been processed, you'll see a blue letter P. To process payroll, you can give it a batch name here. And then mark as payroll processed. You can also see batches that have been processed in the past, and then open batch detail to see that. Then over to the left, there's also different checkbox options here, so you can filter by attendance input date for the date range up at the top. You can also check this box off to look at only unprocessed hours. And then there's also the option here to look at non-hourly payment schedules. So this would include classes that were maybe set up to be paid to the instructor per class or per enrollment. Per class or per enrollment, those options are not going to show you what the payout amount is going to be. So here the total pay is not going to calculate. Just want to point that out because this report is really just set up to work well with hourly payment structures. Then we also have different display type views. So if we're looking at full details, you can look at instructor subtotal by activity, instructor summary, instructor subtotal by role and GL code. Let's take a look at one of these options here. Instructor summary, load data, and you can see that it gives you a summary view instead of listing out each meeting dates. So we can see the pay rate again, sum of the hours, sum of hourly pay. For raw hours, as we were talking about earlier, if you go and look at the staff member page, we have this raw hours tab. This is where you can add raw hours. So if they had worked some other job, but it's not a class or a private lesson per se, you could add raw hours here. And then there's also a checkbox to accrue sick leave if they should be accruing sick leave for this raw hour that you're entering. There's also the payroll type, job class, and then the GL account, and any notes that you need to add. If you've taken attendance for private lessons and you've marked it as payroll processed on this report, you will need to contact support if you need to change the attendance that has already been recorded. So modifications to that will require our team to help you make those changes. If you have any questions, you can always go to the question mark icon at the top, click on contact us to email support, or you can contact our support phone line with this number here.